Nuke threat looms large over Ukraine as Russia issues a nuclear warning, refusing to rule out the use of nuclear power. Kremlin spokesperson has said Russia would only use nuclear weapons in the context of the ongoing war in Ukraine if there is an existential threat. This is not the first time that Putin has hinted at using nuclear power against Ukraine. After the Russian troops invaded Ukraine, Putin on February 28th had claimed that he had asked Russia's nuclear forces on high alert. Russian troops had also attacked premises at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, and attempts were made to capture Chernobyl power plant as well.
Пуск!
The Ukraine-Russia war is getting deadlier with each passing day as Putin is using some of the fiercest weapons. Russia is accused of launching illegal white Phosphorus bombs. These bombs are banned under international law for use in civilian areas.
Amid the raging war in Ukraine, Russia has been pulling out some deadly weapons to target civilians in key cities. In the latest, Russia is accused of launching illegal white phosphorus bombs, which has been banned under international law for use in civilian areas. These white phosphorus bombs, also dubbed as flaming onion bombs, are horrific weapons which can fiercely burn anything that comes its way. This weapon can cause grave injuries as it quickly fires up in the air, spreads over enormous areas up to several hundred kilometers, emanating tremendous heat and poisonous. These white phosphorus bombs also have potential to instantly kill. Russian troops have been accused of using these deadly bombs on civilians in the Donbas region, aiming to show the alleged attack, but Russia has not reacted to any of these allegations. Bureau Report, India Today.
Six rounds of peace talks have taken place between Russia and Ukraine, but there is no sign of a breakthrough just yet. Zelensky has again asked Putin for direct talks to end the conflict, but Putin shows no sign of backing down. The world is holding its breath and asking when and how this war will end. Here is a detailed report.
28 days and counting. Millions have fled their homes. The human cost continues to mount. The economy is flattened. But there are no signs of an end to this war. After 6 rounds of peace talks, a breakthrough still eludes Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has once again called for direct talks with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Russia has rejected Zelensky's demand right away. Moscow says the president-level talks can happen only after the two sides agree on a deal.
With regards to the internal Ukrainian dialogue, it's upon Ukraine now after our operation in Ukraine ends. I hope it ends with the signing of a comprehensive agreement on security issues, that is Ukraine's neutral status with the guarantees of its security.
Much will also depend on where the US stands. American President Joe Biden is traveling to Poland this week. President Biden will not be visiting Ukraine despite request by Kyiv. President Zelensky is making no bones about his disappointment with his Western allies. While Ukraine is putting up a fierce fight despite relentless Russian bombardment, the question is how long they can do that. This is one war neither side seems to have an endgame. Bureau Report, India Today.
It is a war between nations, one army attacking and one defending. But beyond the sound and gore of a bloody war that tots up victory in human bodies, there is a clash of personalities. The other fronts of this war, the fronts painstakingly created and maintained by the individual leaders of this battle. The world too has aligned politically behind these personas. Vladimir Putin on one side, the strong man of Russia, and Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine on the other, the defender of freedom.
One is a strong man. The other has become stronger by the day. The one has at his command one of the most powerful militaries that the world has ever known. The other has become the most powerful symbol of military resistance. One is likened to strong leaders going back over 100 years, whose actions destabilized Mother Russia. The other is also likened to wartime leaders of Europe going back nearly a century. The one is Vladimir Putin, the aggressor. The other is Volodymyr Zelensky, the defender. If only this were a computer game. But it is not, and lives are being lost at every instance. As one man pushes his army to invade, destroy, and kill. And the other man pushes back. Pushes back against the invader. Pushes the conscience of the world to help him keep alive the freedom of choice.
Мы боремся.
If only this were history from the past. If only this were not terrible history in the making.
Такого единения у нас давно не было.
Vladimir Putin, in the 22nd year of his power, is no longer an individual. He's a system. He's an order.
Правильно, когда поставили жесткий барьер на пути.
He's both an individual and a symbol for all that Russia has come to stand today. 146 million Russians do not matter. What matters is what Vladimir Putin decides. Putin is more than an individual. He has become synecdoche, a minuscule Russian who has made himself represent the whole of it. Volodymyr Zelensky, in his third year in office, is no longer the comedian he was. He has grown in importance far beyond the boundaries of his beleaguered country. Zelensky, in his military t-shirt, is a symbol too. Zelensky is resistance, a rallying call for 41 million Ukrainians. Zelensky too is a synecdoche, where the whole of Ukraine is represented in its one single minuscule part.
Geeta Mona, Foreign Affairs Editor, is getting us all of those details, and she joins us from Moscow right now. Geeta, take us through what do you see really on the streets of Moscow right now. This is a country that is facing serious economic sanctions. In the previous report, you did get us those symbols of economic sanctions with a popular restaurant, a food joint that is being closed down right now. What do you see really around you?
Well, I'm right now in a street which houses a lot of the international brands. Now, there is a comparison, Sneha, to make over here. While these are the streets that you would see a lot of people walking down, today wears a look of only a few people walking down the street. Louis Vuitton, Prada, the showrooms are shut, but there are local brands, big names that are still open within Russia. I was speaking to one of the ladies over here, Elisa, a resident of Moscow, and Sneha, this is what she had to say, that the bigger issue is to find a solution to the crisis, because not wearing international brands is not a big problem. They can wait that out. Ensuring that supplies remain, ensuring that there is no economic crisis, and ensuring that the humanitarian crisis comes to an end is the big issue. This, even as we've been reporting, there are negotiations that are underway, and whether if the question of Zelensky and Putin meeting and resolving the entire crisis or issue, or for that matter, the negotiations moving forward for the presidents to really meet, is the big question. But this street that houses a lot of the brands clearly wears a rather deserted look, with most of the brands now having shut shop and operations here in Russia. This is only a small part of the larger impact of the economic sanctions that Russia could feel. Right now, they have their own domestic infrastructure and institutions in place, so we do not see the financial implications of the economic sanctions in Moscow as of today. Supplies are well in place. Cash flow is well in place, so they're not feeling the pinch, but certainly at a macro level, this could really hurt Russian economy,
well,
as also the global economy.
Well, absolutely, but Geeta, when it comes to Russia, and it's been fairly belligerent when it comes to president-level talks, something that Zelensky has been proposing, and this question really in the context of the previous rounds of talks, 6 rounds essentially, have failed. We're 28 days into the conflict, and it does appear that talks is really the only way forward, isn't it?
Well, talks certainly are the only way forward in most of such crisis situations that we've seen and felt in the past. The problem over here is also of the West, and how the West played up and ensured help and support to Zelensky. That did not come Zelensky's way. Ukraine is defending herself on her own. And in that, Russia trying to emphasize no more than once that the security scenario and security of Russia is paramount to Moscow. And if there is, or should there be, an expansion of NATO eastwards to Ukraine, that will be absolutely unacceptable. So whether if a neutrality clause is something that President Zelensky and the Ukrainian administration will agree to or not, is where this entire negotiation hinges upon.
Geeta, thank you for getting us up to speed with those developments. And Geeta, in fact, earlier sent us this report. Remember, India Today is the only Indian network with the biggest group of reporters on ground. Geeta was with us from Moscow just now. From Ukraine to Russia to Poland, India Today is getting you unmatched coverage of this war. Russia is feeling the heat of sanctions. Some banks are open even as big international banks have exited the country. Geeta with this ground report from Moscow.
Life in the time of sanctions. Russia has been sanctioned heavily, economically, and financial institutions, international financial institutions, have shut down on Russia. But has that impacted their own financial institutions, economy, and banking systems? Alpha Bank is one of the largest banks in Russia and is open. Speaking to a few people over here, they say that they've not had any problems, although Moscow did hit the panic button after the 24th of February, and many of them queued up outside of ATM machines. But it seems like right now things have gone back to normal, because they are being able to withdraw money, and there are many European banks that have still not shut operations. This is the Credit Europe Bank that has not shut operations. Raiffeisen Bank, which is one of the biggest banks operating in Russia, is called a Russian bank, but the parent company is Austrian, still functioning here in Moscow, in Russia, and many other banks, including Russia Bank, are operating. People are being able to withdraw money. There are problems with using cards, but they have been using plastic cards, which is a form of digital currency and money. So it is not a huge problem right now, but should the sanctions continue, will it be viable for Russia to continue running its economy on rubles, where people with their dollars stuck in various banks could hit the panic button, and what will happen then next to Moscow, to Russia? With video journalist Satya Rautre in Moscow, Geeta Mohan for India Today. There is no clarity in terms of the sanctions on financial institutions. We went around, we saw that the Russian banks are open, but some of the foreign banks are also, or ATM places are also open. How's that working out? Are there loopholes over here that is amiss when the West speaks about sanctions against Russia?
So speaking about ordinary people, we need to say that banking sector is still working, and people do use their banking cards, and the most I need to emphasize this thing that sanctions were on special sectors of banking, on special banks. And for example, some banks there is a list of banks that were put on sanction regime, but we need to emphasize that the scale of this sanctions regime is different according to different banks and their facilities.
So largely the dollar economy is affected, but the domestic economy is not?
So it depends on the sector of economy. Due to the fact that Russia was, Western countries withdrew Russia from the SWIFT system, it will have implications on the foreign trade, but it has really, nowadays it has really minimal implications on the domestic currency exchanges. According to the fact that some Russian bankings imposed limits on currency exchanges, this might be a real problem for Russian population in the midterm, but nowadays we can witness that people are not facing the lack of foods in shops, and so basically it is okay for now.
Are the banks working normally? Can you withdraw money? Are you facing problems?
No, I don't have problems.
Okay. Is there any difficulty with regards to banking in Russia?
No.
No? When you first heard of the situation with Ukraine, were you worried that sanctions by the West is going to create problems for you as a Russian citizen?
I think no. That's good.
Yeah?
I like Russia. I live in Russia.
Were you, so you bank with the Russian bank?
Yes.
And you're able to take out money?
No.
You know, can you withdraw money when you want to?
Yes.
And is using cards a problem?
Apple Pay is problem, but we have plastic cards.
Oh, you have plastic cards that you can use as currency?
Yes.
Well, in the Russian town of Pokrov, sugar has run out in many stores, and residents expect some goods to become unaffordable as Western sanctions over Moscow's military intervention in Ukraine take hold. Here's more. Two different leaders with two different ideologies, but it's Russian President Vladimir Putin versus Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, not just on the battlefield, but also in terms of the visible lifestyle choices they've made while their citizens bear the consequences of this combat. While one is connecting with the people of its country in a basic khaki t-shirt, the other one refuses to let go of his materialistic choices as the war between the two nations continues.
War, politics and fashion. Yes, it's Russian President Vladimir Putin versus Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Not just on the battlefield, where two nations are in the midst of a full-blown conflict combined with diplomacy, but also in terms of the visible lifestyle choices they make while their citizens bear the consequences of the combat. And during a crisis like this, what connects a leader the most to his people is the kind of attire they wear. An attire that makes them feel they're not alone in this battle to protect the sovereignty and retain freedom. President Zelensky won 1 million hearts for the same as he gracefully opted out of his diplomatic navy suit and has been wearing basic khaki t-shirts ever since the Russian troops invaded Ukraine. His t-shirts aren't just ordinary, but in fact hold a deeper meaning. Rather, a symbol of solidarity, and the cross embroidered on them is for his country's brave soldiers. That's not all. His simplistic, yet the most relatable and accessible garment at this time of crisis created a new fan base for him across the world. Netizens came out in support of Zelensky when one of the American lawmakers, Peter Schiff, right after his video conference with him, took to social media and wrote, "I understand times are hard, but doesn't the president own a suit?" While this was about the humblest president whose only motive is to stand in solidarity with the people of his country. His Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, also currently the reason behind the distress around the world, including the citizens of his own country, on the other hand, is known for his elaborate lifestyle. From designer high-end branded clothes to luxury watches, he has it all and unapologetically flaunts them too. In fact, recently, while addressing a pro-war rally, he wore a puffer jacket worth 25 times the average monthly salary of people in Russia. What's more, he paired the $14,000 Loro Piana coat with a $3,000 roll-neck jumper from an Italian brand, Kiton. His super expensive choice of clothing for a public appearance during a crisis like this leaned more on the masculine side of the fashion spectrum. And this, of course, not only led to criticism but also highlighted his insensitivity furthermore, as his citizens in Russia stand in long queues outside grocery stores for basic necessities. So yes, while there may be spectrums Putin and Zelensky don't align with, but their choice of attire is surely one of them that's hard to miss. Entertainment Bureau, India Today.